Good evening and welcome to the launch event for the Legacies of Biafra exhibition, which is taking place at Gallery Oldham from the 23rd of October 2021 until the 26th of February 2022. My name is Louisa Egbunike. I am curating the exhibition and I am lucky to be joined this evening by two of the artists exhibiting in the exhibition, Okigbo and Chike Azuonye. And I'll be inviting both artists to say a little bit about themselves and about their work, and then we'll get into a conversation. So Obi, would you like to go first?
Hello, Louisa. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm Obi Okigbo, visual artist. I'm a painter with a background in architecture. It's an honor to participate in this exhibition with the legacy, with the Nigerian Art Society UK. And we'll be talking more about the work as we converse later. So I'll pass you on to Chike.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chike Azuonye. I'm the Vice President of Nigeria Art Society UK. I'm a painter. And I studied painting at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and have had so many exhibitions over the years. And now we are planning for our next show, the Legacies of Biafra exhibition at Gallery Oldham from the 23rd of October to the 26th of February. So I hand over to Louisa now.
Thank you for telling us a bit about yourselves. So this is the second Legacies of Biafra exhibition that we've had. And both of you participated in the first exhibition, which was at the Brunei Gallery at SOAS in 2018. Can I just get a sense from you, the reactions you've had to the first exhibition, the reactions and responses to your work, and how that has potentially shaped or impacted the subsequent work that you've created. I know that both of you created work that engages with this topic of Biafra prior to, the conception of this exhibition. So maybe also a little bit about the work that you created, what inspired it, and sort of what you're continuing to work on in relation to this topic. I just threw a lot of questions at you, so please feel free to answer whichever bit you want and leave out whichever bit you don't want to speak to.
Yeah, well, like you say, the work that I showed in the exhibition at the Brunei, which was entitled Biafra Memorial, is something that a concern that I've been thinking and working on since 2002 to 2007, which came from a personal event related to the death of my father, the fact that there was no gravesite, there was no funeral, there was no place to go to, how this can affect community, individuals with this kind of sense of non-closure and the trauma. And so putting that on a bigger scale, the community scale, I began to see similarities in the denial or lack of having a space to really mourn and move on. In fact, it was the most important point, in fact, was moving on and letting go to be able to welcome a new future. And so the idea of a memorial site, whether it's psychological or physical, was what moved me to develop this work. And as I started working on it in the Brunei, I showed 2 physical pieces, which was actually a plan for a memorial site, a physical place, which would be a forest, an arboretum, and with a statue for remembering. So it will be on 3 levels, where there's a place to recollect. The idea of the arboretum and planting trees is also laying seeds for the future. And then the third aspect, which was actually the personal, emotional trauma, I reenacted that somehow with video and poetry. And so the 3 pieces look at all the aspects of trauma, in fact, that I was talking about. And the reactions, in fact, from the Brunei exhibition was a lot of, most of the feedback was a relief, in fact, felt from most from people of all generations to be able to finally look, understand, deal with, visualize, enact, ritualize this process, because there was the capsule of the vocal testimonies, all the artists' works in different media, the documentation, the actual Biafra souvenirs. And so all these aspects also kind of convinced me to continue the emotional aspect of the project. And so I went on and made the film, the poetry. I don't know if that's
that's wonderful, and that question of memory as well. I mean, you're talking about memory and memorializing, and your approach to memory is just thinking about how do we remember, how should we remember, how can we remember, and that's actually quite a nice segue into speaking about Chike's work, because Chike, I believe you drew on your own personal memories and experiences in the creation of your work.
Yes, listening to Obi, Obi, I think you and I, we share the same, maybe not on the same degree, but we share the same trauma, a sense of loss and stuff. For me, I lost a lot of people during the war. I was just thinking about it today, one of my very close uncles. And also the personal effect, because I experienced the war. So all these were playing in my, without me realizing it. The only time I realized it was trauma was when I attended the Igbo conference that we had, the Legacies of Biafra as a team. And I saw that I was not the only person that was affected, that they're still affected by that war till today. And that was a revelation to me, because I didn't know that people were still feeling the same way. To the extent that if I hear an aeroplane late night, it reminds me of the war. Because there was this around 11, 12 midnight, that's when you hear all these night raids, or when the Caritas or Red Cross are bringing in food because of the blockade. So, but going back to the issue of the exhibition that we had as SOAS, all this feeds into it. But in that particular exhibition, what I wanted to do was to, I would say that what affected me most as well, it's not so much, we didn't suffer so much as other children, because I don't know, it's like, how do I put it now? 4 of my brothers were had to do with the had to be either soldiers or war reporters. My brother, Professor Azuonye was a war reporter with Obiora Udechukwu. Ike, my brother, was a soldier, and 3 others of my brothers were fighting. So we were always afraid of getting some bad news. it was horrible. So what happened was that while they were all gone into, but we kept moving, because when we go to a point where we think, oh, this is a place where we're gonna rest, at least for a while, after a while, that place will fall. And it's not just falling, they'll be, sending all sorts of shells. We woke up in the morning, you're running for your dear life. I used to carry out my mom's machine, which was our saving grace, the machine, or we alternate with my younger brother, our youngest brother. So I'd either carry him or carry the machine, the sewing machine, and we kept running from one place to another. So that actually reinforced the concept of movement, displacement. We became refugees. We were not poor. We were, reasonably okay before the war, but we found ourselves, really, really suffering. So that actually was what motivated me to do the works I did at that exhibition, which Exodus. Louisa was there when I started Exodus. The first stroke of Exodus, Louisa was there in my studio to see it happen. So, and then when I look at what is happening today, you could see that there's so many people being displaced. As we are talking now, people are still being displaced all over the world. So it's not just, did not just stop with Biafra, it kind of continued.
Thank you both. And I'm just listening to both of you and thinking about how much of yourself is in the works. You're really drawing on your own personal narratives. You're really digging into this past. And as you said, Chike, sometimes it's not always apparent how heavy something is weighing on you until you begin to examine it. And that realization can come much later. And it's interesting that it's 50 years later that you're kind of reckoning with that really difficult and traumatic period of your life. And I wonder if you can both speak a little bit about the processes in creating the art. When you are reckoning with this difficult and traumatic past, what's the process of then channeling that into the works and then the works that emerge out of that?
Yeah, what I think about that, I'll be brief about this, is that when you look at my work, the one I titled Exodus, you see that in order to represent what really happens when somebody is called a refugee, you see, people look at refugees as very poor people. But that's not true. So you find amongst the refugees, you find doctors, lawyers, professors, every type of human being you see as a refugee. But everybody's leveled. Everybody becomes the same because you can't find food, there's no job, nothing. You don't have a home. You're homeless. So it's not an easy thing a place to be when you have lost everything in life and you just don't know where the next meal is coming. When the rain falls, it falls on you. And it's for those who are fortunate to have children, who are fortunate, but also unfortunate because of the circumstances, to move with their family, it becomes even more difficult than a single person. So that's why if you look at the painting Exodus, you see that the faces are not shown. That means that it shows that as a refugee, you don't have any identity. You're stripped of who you are. Even if you have swimming pool, even if you have Rolls Royce, even if you have 10 million, it doesn't matter. You're a refugee. That's why my painting is about displacement, about, I would say migration, but it's not really, but the word is displacement. You're displaced, from where from your comfort zone, and you become a wanderer, and depend on people. when you shouldn't really, but this is the reality. So that is the main thing that kind of reinforced and kept reinforcing in my work. And if you look at, you know, this whole story of that work, you see that it's just about that theme of displacement and refugees. Thank you. Yeah. Obi, what about you? What do you?
Yes, the process, in fact, it's interesting because while I was thinking of the memorial, excuse me, proposing something wasn't enough. It didn't seem to be enough for me to convey the actual process of healing, that journey. And so I think that's why I kind of went to experiment with something that I've never done before, which is the spoken word and performance with a friend of mine here who is a poet and spoken word musician, artist. It was also nice to work in teams because, you know, it's a very solitary practice. And because I've been kind of looking at Jodorowsky and about the whole tradition of funeral and looking at the deeper reasons behind it, apart from the tradition, the actual ritualistic process that helps us to exercise and to do the actual mourning to move on. And so that's what is focused on in this, in the video, Ode to Remembrance, working with the poem Lament of the Silent Sisters by Christopher Okigbo, my father, which is about condolences. And so you have the condolences, and then it's in the forest, and it's the center of the whole scene is an old tree. And in effect, I go walking, almost lost, like in a labyrinth in the woods, to come out to the oracle and then to give offerings at the foot of the tree to honor the dead souls, and, you know, to have a kind of actual ritualistic act of a conscious action on to actually exorcise that trauma. And so so the process, I kind of experimented with that to find a process that actually goes through that ritual act. So it's not just the process of making a sculpture or making a proposition or doing something theoretic. There's also something psychological, emotional, and poetic.
So many things have just come to my mind listening to you speak. Hopefully I can make it into a coherent response, but I think just even the idea of process and the idea of processing, and just to think about your work that was in the Legacies of Biafra exhibition at Gallery, Brunei Gallery, and the fact that you've added this video of kind of this performance, is that the work is also still in process. And this sense of just thinking about the themes that you're touching on, and the idea of this kind of open wound, that the idea of there not being resolution, that sort of seeking that sense, well, it's very much rooted in the spiritual, but seeking to acknowledge and remember all those who lost their lives, all those who maybe, lost their lives during the war and wouldn't have received, as you said, ritual, the kind of burial rites. And that's still, but also, as Chike mentioned, you know, the idea that this trauma, it may have been buried, but it's still there. And it's also about processing it. And so I think that adding the performance, you know, that you have in this exhibition also shows that it's an active thing. It's not static, it's ongoing, yes. You know. And so the fact that this piece is evolving, it's something that's continuing to be engaged with. And I'm just thinking about, Chike also has multiple works that engage with this theme, and it shows that it's something that he's also been working on, and it's not ever finished. It's something that you work through. And I think both of your work is really, it's really beautiful in that it is processing, and also speaking to both of your works speak to each other. But I wanted to pick up on this idea of, on this presence of poetry, very overtly present in your work, Obian. And Chike, I know with your training in the Nsukka School of Arts at the University of Nigeria Nsukka, that poetry was a big part of your practice. It was a big part of the approach to the arts. It was the kind of poetic in conversation with the visual arts. So I wonder if you can both say a little bit about the relationship that your work has with poetry, or also just the lyricism of poetry, and how that might translate into maybe work on the canvas, or what other forms you're working in.
Okay, in fact, today I was tempted to read one of either Obiora Odechukwu's poem or my brother Professor Azuonye's poem, because they wrote extensive. They wrote a lot of poems, either based on Chris Okigbo or ideas from Chris Okigbo. Everything was just circulating around Chris Okigbo because everyone saw him as a genius. And the people I'm mentioning, like my brother Chuma Azuonye and Professor Obiora Odechukwu, were all very, very intelligent, very highly intelligent people. And those contemporaries, were of a very, very high breed. And we, the younger ones, have tried to emulate them. I, for one, have learned a lot. In fact, since even during the war, that's when I started hearing about Chris Okigbo. It's not today, So, and I have followed the story from then till now. If you look at my work, Ozemena, it kind of relates with exactly what what you're talking about. It's poetry in its own way. But that painting reminds me, or takes me back to the period where we knew that food was coming into Biafra. We knew that from not enough food, but Caritas was sending food, and all sorts of organizations like the Red Cross, they were sending food and things. But the food were not getting to the people. So that's why you have Poshoko, children were dying. It's not just because of the blockade. It's just that when the food comes, a lot of people sell the food. A lot of people who were supposed to be distributing the food will share it, will either use it for themselves or share it. So people started blaming Caritas for that. They were not blaming the individuals. I don't know, there's a song that I would have liked to sing for Obi. I don't know if you heard this song. I can just sing it. I just feel like singing it. It goes like this. Nyayo poroko, Caritas, nyayo poroko, ndị ọcha butere yo. Nyayo poroko, Caritas, nyayo poroko, ndị ọcha butere yo. And this is the song you used to hear in those days. What it means that he's saying, Caritas, please give us the food that the white man has brought for us. Please. Yeah. So people were really, really starving, and that's why that painting has people with Poshoko and families who are starving. But I think we probably may have had enough food to go around, but we were not seeing the food. Yeah. So, and that brings me back to the issue of poetry in your work. I see a work of art as poetry, but not written with a pen, but written with a brush. As I mentioned previously in our previous discussions, I used to read a lot of poems I used to write a lot of poems myself. And yes, and there's one of my poems, which one day I'm going to read it to people. It's called Winter. Winter. That's the title. But one day when we had this, and I'm going to tell, maybe not in this forum, but the reason why I mentioned this is that, when you read a poem, you can actually put it into a painting in a different way. It begins to have its own life, apart from the source you've taken it. You read it, you digest it, and it becomes alive again. And it's something that, I would like to see happen. And maybe just to point out one more thing is that when you look at, when you were talking about not having proper memorial for the dead, that same painting of Zemena is also telling that same story, because at the bottom part of that painting, you see a lot of, it looks like images, undefined images, stylized images, and in front of those images, you see a cross, crosses representing all the people we lost in that very, very wicked war. And we need to give them respect. We need to find a place that we can pour libation to them and say thank you for
sacrifice.
For the sacrifice. Yeah, thank you. That's what I want to add to what you said, Obi. So that was a very strong point. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Chike. And what you're saying about poetry and painting, in fact, I came into poetry very late in my life. You can say that I'm a real Agbaya, Nigerian. And the first exhibition I ever had was at the Brunei Gallery, the SOAS.
Sorry.
It was a conversation between my father's poetry and my art, because coincidentally, that's when also I started painting. I moved from architecture. And so it's a very strange thing, because it's almost as if he was like a teacher and a mentor through the poetry. So I don't know if I was interpreting the poetry, but there's a lot of the poetry in the painting. And a lot of it's, and since then, it's really Christopher Okigbo's poetry is like a mine of inspiration. It's like unending in a way. And I must say, I'm very, very fortunate enough to have that, that treasure that I delve into really each time, and it just goes deeper and deeper. And since I launched the Christopher Okigbo Foundation in 2005, I've been actually also reciting his poetry more. And that has been also an interesting exercise, because it's something that I've never done before, the spoken word. And
just wanted to say that that song that I just sang not long, it's one of many songs we used to sing then. But I just wanted to say that the Nyayo Boroko is give us stockfish. Boroko is stockfish. Okay. Yeah, give us the stockfish that the white man gave to us, because people were hoarding it. So I think poetry plays a huge part in what we are doing, and it's good that Obi, maybe in future, both of us might have something to do, maybe a reading. We could actually read Okigbo's poems and dramatize it. And then I'll have the opportunity of sharing with you my award-winning Winter, my poem.
With pleasure, with pleasure. You see, poetry just kind of weaves relationships, and yes.
And poetry runs in my family. Even my children, all my brothers, my whole family were just poets. All of us. Yeah.
Wow.
So it kind of runs in all of us. Yes, and I'm glad that we have some relationship between me and you, because my older brothers have written extensively on Okigbo, Chris Okigbo, and I'm proud. It's just huge, and I've read most of them anyway, and I have them in as books, as manuscripts, that are still there. Yeah.
It's really interesting to listen to both of you. I would also love to hear your poetry, both of you. So maybe we could, in future, when you're both ready, we could have a poetry night.
Yes, why not? Yes.
Why not?
I think so. I think we've just found another event for this exhibition. So you've just signed yourselves up to.
Yeah.
But
yes, why not? Really, truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Obi, I wanted to ask you, your work, how does it, going back, how does it feel that you have actually done a lot based on your dad's work? How does it feel, you feel a sense of honor, a sense of gladness that you had the opportunity of doing this for your dad, it's a continuation of his work?
Yes, it's in the beginning, it was as if I was stepping into some gigantic shoes. But just little by little, step by step, I'm very proud of the things I've been able to do, which is I've really just focused on the printed books. And so we had the re-edition with Heinemann. And last year, we couldn't launch it because of the COVID, but we had the French edition also that was published,
okay,
which was huge. And so just really focusing on the printed word and for posterity.
Yes.
And it's really exciting to see that how his work still touches people of the next generation, because the artist I was talking to you about is in his 30s. I get propositions and letters from people who are doing, dance performance, theater, different media. And so it's really, I'm happy, I'm relieved actually to have actually been able to have the structure for people to be able to use his work and take it on, continue. Right. Yes, from generation to generation. And personally, as an artist, I feel really blessed to have, that inspiration and knowledge and beauty accessible. So, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, what you're saying there just reminds me of the fact that the exhibition is called Legacies of Biafra. And so we are thinking through legacies also in terms of the legacies within the arts. And I think Chike's really made it clear that the way in which Christopher Okigbo has influenced, the next generation, but then also your work, even just you as a legacy of your father, but your work as well, and the way in which you reinterpret his work as a way of kind of memorializing, remembering, reinterpreting, making it accessible, and having a conversation that opens it up to people who are, not just in the literary world, but also in the visual arts. So all of this is part of that remembering. And then listening to both of you, I mean, Obi, you speaking about almost finding a new voice or a new language through which to have this conversation, migrating from, painting into performance arts. And Chike, you also, part of your remembering is also song. It's not just, not just poetry, not just painting, but also song. And I'm thinking about just the arts, broadly speaking, as sites of memory, as places to remember, and the different languages, the different forms we use to remember. So I wonder if you can just speak to that process of remembering and finding the language through which you want to memorialize and remember.
Well, I would say with my work, I'm moving more and more into being in the moment, with Indian ink, with working in pen, and so it's a funny approach because it's in that moment, being in the present, but you carry your whole world and memory in that one instant. And I'm moving more and more and more into being more focused and and precise in my gesture. Knowing that it's carrying everything that I know and beyond. Yes, in that one moment. Yeah.
Obi, I wish I could do that because it's.
It's very, very ambitious, but that's basically
it is
samurai approach.
Yes, it is very, very ambitious because I'm thinking, how could I bring the past into the present? In other words, to me, it says that letting go of the past. But, we all went through a very, very traumatic period, and it's not something you could just forget. But we have to try and forget, especially the horrible ones. But from time to time, it just keeps popping up from whatever you do, you just keep thinking about it. And one of the things that help with this remembrance is that my mom, I still don't know how she did it. She has 4 of her children in the bush, for how many, 3 years. So without knowing where they were, whether they are eating or being shot or something, all sorts of things. So it's quite terrible. But every night, what she does will be to sing us songs. We learned so many songs from her. Apart from even the war songs, because there are war songs, you hear the soldiers, once we sing as children and everything, so song became something that made people to it brought people together during the war. Different songs. You hear the soldiers singing every morning when they are doing their early morning march. Enyimba, enyi, enyimba, enyi. And then over time it becomes part of you as well. And then when you come back at night, our mom, once we have had our dinner, our mom will start singing for us until we fall asleep. And some of those songs actually, when I remember them, they take me straight back into the war. And I kind of dash out again quickly because I don't want to go there, and be in the moment, like you said, in the present. I would rather, to be honest with you, I would rather be in the present than go back to that period. I don't want to remember it. I'm sorry, but I want to be in the present. I don't want to go back to that experience. Yeah.
But I guess at the present anyway, it's laden with all the past.
Yeah,
and it's for everything to happen. So
that's why I said before I started this, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you were able to manage to do that. It's quite a difficult feat, you know. Yes.
But it's so beautiful. I think what you're saying about song and how
poetry, yes, and storytelling.
You can actually teletransport yourself. Yes. It has such a strong memory, in fact, a vibration, a song. Yes. It's like Ratatouille, you know, the comic with the food, how it actually takes you back. You know, I find that song also, it's a very, very, very strong receptacle of
yes. So we're talking about songs here, we're talking about poetry, we're talking about storytelling, yes. You know, the narrative, and also, sorry to bring this in, every evening we gather around radio stations when they give us the you know, it's all, a lot of them were propaganda. And there was a radio Luxembourg. You know, we used to listen in those days. I don't know why Luxembourg of all places, you know. But they were reporting on the war, Radio Luxembourg. If you want to know what's happening in Biafra, between Biafra and Nigerian war, listen to Radio Luxembourg. How that happened, I don't know. Yeah, but you know, we used to listen to a lot of the progress of the war, you know, apart from the propaganda, you know, between the Nigerian forces and Biafran forces, you know, there's always this propaganda news you hear, you know. But like I said, you know, all this kept us together, you know, kept us, you know, strong, you know, and you know, when I hear those songs now, it takes me back to that period. Like I said, I like to jump out again into the present because I don't want to be there for too long. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just listening to you describe that reaction, you know, it being able to transport you back and you sort of not wanting to dwell in that space, but being in the present. I wonder, how do you manage to draw on your experience to be able to produce your work without also being drawn back into a place that you don't want to reside in? How do you manage to navigate that?
You do. Yeah, you do get drawn back. You know, like when I was painting Ozemena, it has all the things about the war there, everything. So it drew me back to images of children dying of hunger, kwashiorkor. It drew me back to people shouting for food, they couldn't eat food, I mean adults. And then after a while, you stop hearing the cries, that means that they're gone. And then you then hear a loud wailing, people are crying. That's when you know that the person has died, because that person has stopped shouting for food. You know, these are all, it's not very easy. Ozemena was quite a very difficult painting to paint, because as I'm painting it, I was trying to recapture in my head some of the images I saw, and the fact that, you know, up until today, Nigeria has not found it in their heart to actually commemorate the day that that war, you know, whether as victors or as vanquished, you know, whatever that means. You know, we should be able to just as people here remember the First and Second World War, yes, we should be able to recognize, because I see I see the heads of states from all over so-called Commonwealth, you know, coming to the cenotaph every year, including my country, Nigeria, to lay wreaths for those who died in the First and Second World War. Why can't we do it for a war that touched every tribe in Nigeria. You know, when we talk about this, it's not that the only Igbos died.
Yes.
You know, people of other tribes died as well, you know. Soldiers from other tribes died. I know that Awobuni killed a lot of people. These were not Igbos. These were not Easterners. These were other people. So why is it quite difficult for us to tell children about this war? Maybe when they have an idea of the horrors that people saw, that would make them not to talk about another war. That would make them to realize that something happened, because those who were born after the war, some of them don't even know there was anything like Biafra. They don't even know there was anything like civil war or what happened during that period.
Yeah,
so that is why this exhibition is very important. You saw the effect it had on so many young people who never even knew about that there was a war, you know. And for the first time, there's a girl I saw that came about 6 times just to see the show, and eventually I think she brought her parents to see that show at SOAS. So, and I hope that this exhibition we're having at Gallery Oldham will actually attract younger people who may not have heard about this, you know. So that is my contribution to that point, you know.
Thank you. I think my final question for you both, and just following on from what you've said, Chike, is just thinking about the space, the gallery space, those that visit and revisit, those who've got a personal connection with the war, or those who are from communities that have experienced similar kinds of suffering, and the ability to process, again, back to the study of process, but engaging with the work, understanding or having an emotional response that's able to help you work through whatever your own challenges or trauma is, but also the sense of hopefulness that comes out of that, the sense of healing. And I wanted to touch on this because both of you have produced works that think about the future, that think about healing, that think about the way forward. So I wonder if you can speak to, on 2 levels. First of all, as artists who are working through something, you know, working through your own experiences, whether or not creating this work is cathartic, whether you feel a kind of release when you've made these work, does it release some of that that's bottled up? But also thinking about those that engage, the communities that engage with your work, and the kinds of release that you're offering other people who can come and meditate and think about what you've produced, and be able to kind of, feel kind of freed from something.
Obi, after you, then I'll speak. Yeah.
That catharsis and release is really the high point or highlight of the video performance, and also of having a memorial site. Because, like Chike was saying, you know, not talking about the big wars in Belgium, every 10 paces you go, there's a memorial for someone, for some cause. And so it shows kind of really the level of denial that we're going through in Nigeria, and the urgency, actually, and the need for a place like this. Because I think that we're never really going to be able to truly flourish if we can't acknowledge, heal, and then move on. Because, you know, I've been looking at the Hiroshima monuments, I've just been looking at all the monuments, and every civilized culture in this world has got a place to honor the dead, to heal, and then to move on, to remember and to move on. And the idea of, in fact, having an arboretum with trees that are living, so it's not some kind of like concrete thing that it's only focused on the past and the dead, but something that's living, regenerating oxygen, you know, for the future. And personally, actually making this piece, especially the video, helped me with a frustration of not being able to do anything, actually, because there's the personal trauma, but I must say, you know, like it seems to me so evident, like Chike was saying, that this should be done. And so with the frustration of not having a voice, not being able to do something, I just kind of went and did it. And I feel I did my own offering, my own remembrance and memorial for the lost soul symbolically. And that actually was a release. And I'm not actually going to give up developing the plan, developing the idea, proposing to the powers that be, and insisting on this project to happen.
Well, for me, Obi, thank you so much for that. But for me, painting on its own is like a therapy. Even when you're not dealing with the issue of the what we are talking now about, the war. But what I found was that when we started this project, right from the Igbo conference, that's when the healing started. I never knew I needed healing. I didn't know I had trauma. But what happened was that since then, it's become lighter and lighter. And especially when we then started planning for the exhibition at SOAS, and I started painting, and then, you know, it's a journey between the inner self and the outer self. You are speaking to each, they were speaking to each other. There's a healing going on, you know, and a lot of questions, you know, going back to the painting again of Zemena, which I referred to previously. If you look closely, you see the symbol of Nsibidi and the Uli, Uli design, which is unity and disunity. On the left, where you see the famished family with big tummies, etc., you see that symbol is is a symbol of disunity, where the two curved lines were facing the opposite sides. And then when you go to the right, where you see the three Nigerian men, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, you find that it's now conjoined, it's now together, but it's still a bit murky, because even as we speak, there's a lot of distrust in the country. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of killings going on as we speak. The country is not at peace. And stemming from the fact that, Obi, that you said, that if we fail to do peace and reconciliation like they did in South Africa, it will be very difficult for Nigeria to move on. You know, it's not just forgiving on the individual level. We have to forgive on the national level, because it's a collective. In the Eastern philosophy, they say collective karma. I don't know if you heard about karma. You know, until we begin to respect the unit that forms Nigeria, then there's always going to be the issue of disunity and conflict in Nigeria. You know, nobody wants it, but we have to begin to look at it and respect every part of that country as having equal stake in that. And some of the problems we are having now is the issue of marginalization of people in the Southeast. And that is something that brought about the first, that civil war. And I'm afraid it's still happening. So we have to have this issue of reconciliation. It's very, very important on different levels, individual and national reconciliation.
Thank you both. Thank you both for sharing your personal narratives with us. Thank you for both sharing your works with us. It's been such a moving conversation. You've given me lots to think about. So just thank you so much for all that you're doing. And we'll continue to have these conversations. And I look forward to our poetry evening.
Yes.
And hopefully we can all, if it's safe, gather, and have these.
Yes, I would really like that. Yes, that would be lovely.
I'm looking forward to it. Louisa, anytime you call me for poetry, I'll answer. I love it. I love poetry, yes.
And I will follow Chike. I'll follow Chike, so it's okay.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wishing us a successful
Bye.
exhibition, everybody. Okay. Thank you. Bye.